Wake up, get ready, time to shine, it's your day. Yeah. Join team together, making dreams come true. In the zone, we're connected.
Yeah, so the reality is TA teams everywhere are being asked to stretch further with less and less budgets. And so if there is anything I've learned over the past decade of my career, it's that you can still, in fact, make an impact without working 60-plus-hour weeks, as I need time to coach CrossFit, play with my 4-month-old, as well as play with my fur baby. So let's get into some of these tactics here. By the end of my talk, hopefully you'll be walking away with some key takeaways. So a new way to think about your role as a recruiter, the secret to actually thriving, not just surviving as a 360 recruiter, how to turn your hiring managers into your best allies, and then my personal playbook for getting resources even when budgets are tighter than ever. So I kick this off with rethinking our role, and one of our presenters, Steve, kind of talked a little bit about this earlier, but when I first started in recruiting, I thought my job was pretty straightforward. Source, screen, schedule, hire, rinse, repeat. I'd get a job rec, find some candidates, pass them along, and move on to the next. And if a hiring manager wanted a specific profile, I'd go and look for it, no questions asked. But over time, I started noticing a pattern. Hiring managers were making decisions based on what they thought they needed in that moment without considering the business, the bigger picture and the business context. So they're thinking about how this hire would impact the team they weren't thinking about how the hire would impact the team long term, or how their decision ultimately fit in with company goals, or whether they were even looking for the right skill set. They were kind of hiring in like a silo. And so that's when I realized that I could be the one that bridged that gap. So I wasn't just here to take their orders. I was here to help hiring teams make better decisions. So I could coach them to think beyond their immediate pain points and make hiring decisions that actually benefited the entire business. And so that shift really changed everything for me. I went from just being a recruiter to a very strategic partner. And the best part is about being in recruiting is we're not just filling jobs, we're shaping the teams, influencing culture, and ultimately driving business success. So if you've ever felt like you're just taking orders, trust me, you actually do have so much more influence than you think. But we can't do everything, obviously. So let's talk about how we actually prioritize what moves the needle. So a 360 recruiter means that you're handling it all, from full rec loads, end to end, employer branding, rec ops, enablement, analytics. I mean, the list goes on. And it can easily feel like you have to work an 80-hour week just to accomplish it all. But I'm here to tell you don't. So set some boundaries and use these strategies to actually help you thrive in your role. So the game plan here is we're going to prioritize work that actually moves the needle. We're going to maximize the impact that we bring through employer branding and smarter operations. And then we're actually going to enable our hiring managers to step up and be true partners for us. So I want to start with prioritization because ultimately all tasks do not deserve your time. And I learned this one the hard way. So a while back, I was juggling multiple roles, answering every Slack message immediately, posting jobs to 5 different platforms, tweaking job descriptions because the hiring manager wanted me to swap out words like collaborate for something like partner, as if that's going to magically like bring in better candidates, right? I was busy all day, but by the end of the week, I constantly felt like I wasn't actually making progress on what mattered. And so that's when I realized like being busy isn't the same as being effective. So to combat my achiever personality and the incessant need to get everything done in an 8-hour day, I started to prioritize my work like this, focusing on organizing what is high impact and high urgency, things like closing priority roles or coaching hiring managers or negotiating offers. Then I focused on high impact but low urgency. So things like building talent pipelines or refining my interview processes and doing some employer branding work. Then we've got our low impact, high urgency. So rescheduling for, a non-critical interview for the 4th time and then we finally have like our low impact, low urgency. So posting jobs on random sites that never actually bring in great candidates. And so once I started to prioritize my work and made that shift, I started to get better results with a lot less stress. Now I can sit here all day and tell you if you're not moving the needle on hiring success and efficiency, it's not worth your time. But if you take anything away from my talk today, it is to make sure that you are working or doing some work that energizes you each and every day. sometimes that high urgency, high impact stuff isn't the stuff that's going to keep us excited. So make sure you build in time to work on something that excites you enough to come back to this work tomorrow. So, speaking of impacts, let's chat about employer branding, one of my favorite things. So I've worked for companies that have had zero employer branding budgets and have told me I can't use marketing resources for employer branding. And so I just had nothing. But I know that we need to attract talent. So instead of complaining about the lack of resources, I just got creative. So a couple of things that I have done to do some low budget employer branding is I turn my hiring managers into thought leaders by having them post on LinkedIn about their teams and their leadership philosophies, or having them write blogs for the company blog about, the things that they're working on or the cool things their teams are working on. I also use real employee testimonials to tell an authentic story about the company and about their experiences working with us. And then I rewrite job descriptions to sound human. I put my job descriptions like I'm talking to a friend about a job, using just really casual language and nothing that sounds like robotic, um, and whatnot. So ultimately, by kind of investing in employer brand in these like very low budget ways, applications went up, candidate engagement improved. Constantly, they're like referencing some of these different pieces and articles that our team has done. And best of all, we actually started attracting the right people. So, and not just random applicants who click that easy apply button and post to 50 jobs a day. So, but at the end of the day, branding only works if your recruiting operations are efficient. So let's talk about that. If there is one thing I know for sure, it's that recruiters do not have time to waste. So here's something that I do to make my work more efficient. I automate the tedious stuff. So I use AI note for taking, AI for note taking, LinkedIn safe searches, scheduling tools, and automation within the ATS. I standardize interviews using structured scorecards, interviewer training, clear processes, trying to make that replicable and scalable for the business. And then removing unnecessary steps. This is one I know we can all relate to. All of those people that want like 5 interview rounds, like, please, no, we don't need that. More efficiency equals less burnout, better hires, and a recruiter who actually has time to eat lunch. Okay. But here's the thing, recruiting is not a one-person job. It is a team sport, and we are a player and a coach in that sport. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this topic because I think this can single-handedly change TA within your company. The more we can enable hiring across the business, the easier our jobs are going to be. And like I said, I like to work smarter, not harder. So I talk about structured hiring all the time, and just this week, my husband was reminded me why it's so important. So he's a hiring manager, which is always like a fun parallel to be in, but he's hiring for his team, and he had 2 interviews yesterday. In the first interview, he and his co-interviewer followed a very structured scorecard. They asked the right questions, evaluated the candidate against clear competencies and criteria, and felt pretty confident in their assessment. But in the second interview, the other interviewer knew the candidate personally, and so pretty much threw the scorecard and questions out the window and started just asking some like random ass questions. My husband was like sitting there, like totally thrown off. He's like, I don't really know what to ask next or really how to dig deeper on these things that we haven't prepped for. But worst of all, like after both interviews, it was impossible to compare those 2 candidates. And that is why talent enablement matters, because when hiring managers are not trained, and there's no structured process, you just get messy interviews. And so that leads to bad hires, slower hiring, and more frustration. And so there's really 3 pillars to talent enablement. So pillar 1 is going to be our hiring manager training and giving them the confidence and skill set to be successful in hiring. Hiring managers are not trained in how to hire. They're great at their jobs, but that doesn't mean they know how to define what they need or sell the team or run a structured interview. So often what happens is they'll ask some random off the cuff questions, like my husband's co-interviewer, or rely too much on gut feelings. So we love that, gut feelings, instead of structured evaluations. And then some just assume it's our job to find the perfect person without understanding what that actually means. And so that's why I train hiring managers to clearly define what success looks like in the role, learn how to sell the company and role to their candidates, and then giving structured, useful interview feedback, because not a fit or a gut feeling or not vibing is not a reason to reject someone. When hiring managers are better at hiring, everything moves faster, smoother, and with fewer headaches. So, training alone isn't enough. We need a structured hiring process too. So, clear and consistent interview processes, which will reduce bias and improve hiring decisions. So, back to my husband's experience, that first interview, great, structured, clear, easy to evaluate. We love that. Second one, chaotic, biased, confusing. Let the conversation like, I don't know if I should hire this person or not. If hiring managers don't have structured processes, it's impossible to make those apple to apple comparisons, ensure that those decisions aren't based on gut feelings or personal connections, or to also give the candidate a great experience that reflects well on your company. So standardized scorecards, so hiring decisions are consistent and data driven. Interviewer training, so every interviewer knows what good looks like, and then structured interview panels, so candidates aren't answering the same three questions 5 times. When interviewers are clear and consistent, hiring decisions get better, faster, and less biased. But filling roles, hiring isn't just about filling today's roles, it's also planning for the future. So pillar 3 is about proactive talent pipelines and tapping into our networks. The best hiring happens before the job gets posted, which can be really hard, especially when you're like a sole recruiter doing the 360 thing. But a strong talent pipeline means you're never starting from scratch. Instead, you have a list of people you already know, already trust, and have already engaged with. So some things that I do to build proactive pipelines is keeping a short list of future hires. These might be silver medalists or people I've come across through my recruiting career. These are the people that I know I'd hire tomorrow if I had an open role for them. Then I engage candidates regularly. So whether it's a quick LinkedIn message or using my ATS as like a CRM to kind of keep those folks nurtured and engaged. And then making all candidates feel special. I want them to remember me just based on the experience I provided and how I made them feel in a pretty devaluing job search. So building a talent pipeline isn't necessarily about hoarding resumes. It's about having the right people ready when we need them. So if you take nothing else from this, remember, hiring manager training makes your job easier. Clear interview processes lead to faster, smarter hiring. And then proactive pipelines mean we're always one step ahead. So even with the great processes and training, we still need tools and resources to do our job. And I know asking for budgets can feel like pulling teeth, but you can get leadership to say yes if you make a solid business case. We've all been there. You know exactly what tool or resource you need that would make your life or hiring faster and more effective, but leadership says there's no budget for that. And I get it, budgets are tight, but you know what's even more expensive? The bad hires, slow hiring, and then recruiters stuck in admin work that actually isn't moving the needle. So the key to getting leadership to say yes is making a business case. And I'm going to actually provide you with a real life example of something that I did. But first, we want to identify the problem. So what's slowing us down? Executives aren't going to improve something unless they see the pain point. So identify what that is. Is it, feedback or hiring manager struggling to assess candidates? Is it too much admin work? Is it slow decision making? Define the problem clearly and leadership will listen. Then we want to show the business impact. So why should leadership care? They don't care about making our jobs easier. I promise. They care about lost revenue, wasted time, bad candidate experience. So if it's costing time or money, it's probably worth their attention. And then finally, present a solution with that ROI or return on investment. So show the value. Make it clear how your solution fixes the problem. So a real life example of something that I did or a business request I made was about integrating an AI note taker into my recruiter screen, since I am literally on back to backs all day. Writing up feedback for having 20 conversations a week takes a lot of time. So I identified the problem that recruiters and hiring managers and interviewers are spending too much time writing interview notes, and it's impacting our processing time. It's causing inconsistent feedback. We're not assessing candidates as fairly as we should be. And so I wrote up the ROI as like, me alone, I'm saving $4,500 in annual productivity by like decreasing the amount of time it's taking me to write up feedback. But extend that to our entire team of interviewers, like that makes a huge impact across the business. It allowed us to get more structured feedback, which ultimately leads to better hiring decisions and faster decisions as those post-interview discussions are happening quicker. So with numbers like I provided, leadership said yes. And I started with the rollout with myself, proved its worth, and then we rolled it out to our team and they love it. My CEO says he will never go back to not having that in his conversations. Um, so basically, how do you get to the yes? Next time you need that tool or resource, follow this, identify the problem, show the business impact, and then present your ROI. So at the end of the day, being a 360 recruiter in lean times is tough, but it's also an opportunity because whether you're a team of one or on a small team, you have the chance to build something truly impactful. So if you take nothing else away from today, remember that you're not just a recruiter, you're a strategic partner. So stop taking orders and start shaping hiring decisions that impact the business. Prioritize what actually moves the needle. Not everything is worth your time, so focus on those high impact things that lead to better hiring outcomes. But again, remember to make space for the things that energize you. Make hiring a team effort. Hiring managers need training. They need structured processes and proactive pipelines to succeed. So you're the one who can lead that charge. And then advocate for what you need. You can't do everything alone. If a tool, resource, or process improvement will make hiring more effective, make that business case and get that leadership to say yes. When you do these 4 things, you just stop surviving as a team of one or a lean team and you start thriving. So here's my challenge for you as you leave my session today. What is one thing you're going to do differently in your role starting tomorrow? And that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Oh, oh.